Hey folks, please forgive the sound of construction sites and traffic across the road. I'm not in my natural habitat right now. But I have a spare half an hour to cook up a nice lunch, and I've got a beautiful piece of Sambar backstrap here. This is the one I took with Dylan Smith down in Victoria a couple of months ago. Boy, it was a good animal. Most Sambar are, but this was a really good animal. I'm going to top it off afterwards with a beautiful chimichurri sauce, but the barbecue's hot, so I won't waste any more time. So I trimmed this piece up before and just put a bit of salt on as seasoning. I didn't add pepper because the chimichurri is going to have a lot of spice and zest in it already. Folks, the main thing I always want to emphasize is if you want to get the best out of your venison, you have to let it defrost to room temperature, and that's absolute room temperature all the way to the core. If you're going to leave it in the fridge, it's going to be a good chance that that core's still really cold or semi-frozen, so really give it that time to defrost. Now the main thing when I put on the first sear is I want to try and get all different sides of it, even the end bits and the side bits, nicely seared. What I do now that it's had about an average of a minute and a bit both sides and nicely seared in all the ends there is I turn the heat down and I give it some time to finish itself off to the core at a much lower temperature. I'll be giving it a bit of a double check and a look at about 4 or 5 minutes to flip it over, but all in all this isn't getting more than 8 to 10 minutes as a piece of meat at all. Now just in case some of you guys can't tell, I'm not a chef or a cook really by any stretch of the imagination, but I am a hunter who eats what he kills. And the way I've always done this at this point is once I've given the piece, a good another 4 to 5 minutes at a cooler temp on top of that, I just put it in a dish like that to rest, and I cover it in a piece of foil. And that way I'm just allowing that internal part just to continue cooking on its own heat. That's the way I do it. Does anyone do it differently? Always happy to take hints and tips. Chuck them in the comments below if you have some advice for me in that respect. But this always works for me though. It always turns out juicy and succulent. Now there's nothing much too different to a standard chimichurri recipe that I've got going here, except that I decided to use some mint alongside all the other traditional ingredients, which is parsley, dried oregano, salt and pepper, garlic, and fresh or dried chili, with a good olive oil and some red wine vinegar. But one thing is, I noticed plenty of variations. Some people like to blend it all up, and that's one way of doing it, very similar to a pesto. I just prefer to just roughly chop everything and keep it that way because all the different ingredients kind of stand out alone, which is really nice. I think the main thing to be cautious of is just to never go too hard on one particular ingredient. I was pretty easy on the mint, went a little bit harder on the garlic than maybe I should have, but it's just nice for one strong ingredient not to overpower the others too much. Nice. Now this was closer to rare than medium rare because that's exactly how I like my venison. But all I'd say is err on the side of less rather than more, because you can always cook it a bit more if it's not to your taste or not done well enough if you're one of those people. But this was just delectable, tender. Well, I'm tucking in, treating myself. That's definitely a carnivore's lunch, that's for sure. But that was really easy. Like I just said before, I'm not like some pro cook or anything. It's something that anyone can put together quite quickly. It's the kind of thing that works on a weeknight as well. It's not always just a special occasion thing. Let's do what we can to integrate game meat into our everyday diets. Because we're one of the few countries in the world where that's possible to almost subsist on venison. So I encourage that highly, guys. Folks, I just want to quickly talk about the binos that I've been running for about the last 6 months. The Maven C3s, and they're 10x50s. Now, I had a pair of 10x42s, and I wanted the upgrade to 10x50s because I had a lot of paddock hunting in mind, some fringe fallow on private property where just getting that extra boost to last light was really going to count. And particularly because if you're shooting them at a bit of range, well then the last bit of light's all you need. But I've been able to use these on a broad scale of terrain. Yes, they performed really well on that open country kind of stuff. They also performed extremely well in rougher bush habitat, where I do the majority of my public land hunting. That's a lot of state forest stuff. It's a lot of high country Sambar stuff. And so look, choosing a mid-range pair, you think, all right, well, what am I gaining? What am I losing? Don't get me wrong, you gain a lot for paying top level for glass. But I've gained huge capability with this pair. And I guess the point where Maven's saved a little bit of money, or been able to save the consumer a bit of money, is that they haven't done glitz and glam on the housing of the C3s. Now that suits me just fine because I absolutely expect to scratch and scuff these up at some stage. I have a little bit already. And I expect to do it a lot more than that. And that's just due to the kind of country that I hunt. But at the same time, absolutely not losing the advantages with the glass. I think the first thing that's really popped up for me as an advantage is doing most of my glassing in the morning and the evening, hunting hard during the day. You've got real high humidity levels and fog levels in the morning in particular. I am forever taking a bit of tissue or the end of my sleeve and constantly cleaning fog off the lens of this camera. But you know what, I don't have to do it with these at all. And that's largely to do with the film and the coatings that they add to the glass at the very end of the production, because these are completely waterproof. At that last point of assembly when they seal them, they inject nitrogen into them, which assists in that anti-fog too. That's a huge advantage though, particularly in those early mornings in high country where you can kind of expect that. Now the second thing, which I guess for some people can go either way as an advantage or a disadvantage, is there's quite a firm focus wheel here, also on the right eye focus just there too. It's quite firm. I like that a lot because sure, if you've got the luxury of a nice high point and glassing, well then yeah, you'll be rolling it consistently. But if you're in the bush and you've got your eyes on something and it's set, the last thing you want when you're tracing an animal that's at a bit of a closer range is to smear that wheel and to knock your focus off, because when you put it to your eyes again and the pressure's on, well, you might not actually realize which way that the focus wheel has gone, whether it's gone to longer or shorter distance in the eyes, and so you might just start rolling it the wrong way, so you've exacerbated the problem, and that might be costing you valuable seconds and might cost you a valuable animal. But even just this morning, I got myself pretty close to a Sambar hind and she smelt me. Now this was a bow hunting scenario, so I was trying to get real close. I'm not worried about that focus wheel at all because I'm trying to grab the bow in one hand and sneak myself over. The great advantage to that was I was keeping a lot of natural cover in front of me. A lot of thorn bushes, a lot of dogwood, just that low-lying scrub, and kind of keeping quite close to them. And I brushed the glass straight over and I'm tracking her through as I'm looking through the bushes. As soon as the moment you take the binders away, the bush is right up in your face, that's all you can see. I couldn't see her. Put the binder straight up again, that focus wheel hasn't been bumped, hasn't shifted, and I can see her clearly. Now I guess this is a scenario where bushes that are nice and close to me, if the bushes were closer to her and I had more open ground in between us, well then that advantage wouldn't have been there for me then in that kind of scenario. But the way it was this morning, it worked absolutely perfectly for me. I've often got to remind myself that, you know, yeah, those focus wheels are quite firm. The eye relief, yeah, that's not as firm. I've just got to remember that it moves far more gently, and that's fine. It's just something I've got to be on top of. This one, well, it moves a bit stiff only because I've been using the heck out of it and it's got some grit in it from the last couple of days. I'll have to clean that up. But folks, the Mavens in my hand today are supplied to me by The Modern Hunter, who supply all the optics to this channel. I hope that some of you will want to support the businesses that support Aussie Bush Harvest, so if you're keen on a pair of Mavens at all, just interested in the brand, check out the link below to The Modern Hunter. Folks, one thing I'll leave you with is Victoria's trout season's just opened. We've got New South Wales opening coming up soon. I'm actually going to miss it because I'm going to be down at Tassie, because early season in Tassie, which is already open, goes off, I can tell you what. But just to get everyone G'd up, I just want to share a bit of footage I got from last year had a little spin session on one of my old creeks, which I used to love fishing back in the day. And geez, it brought me back. God, it was a good session. We had heaps of water last year. Boy, did the trout turn on. So enjoy that, folks. Get keen. Keep getting those good times natural. Oh, going to an old haunt, an old patch of river that I haven't seen in a while. I tell you what, it did not look like this last time I was here. The whole thing, well, looked a lot narrower than that. These recent floods seem to have broken it apart like that, so I'm very excited to fish. Particularly the way that water is now. That's exciting. That's cool. Beautiful big hole. I've been coming to this hole on and off for years, and it's always been quite reliable. This is the first time I've seen it post flooding, and it's almost completely changed. I'm going to start off in this pool. It's like a mud-eye soft plastic there, quite big, but I think it can also imitate terrestrials and the like. I'll work it along that edge about 10 times. Maybe start off with a little bit of natural drift, but then if it sinks out of it, and then just slowly twitch it back. And if that doesn't work, then I might switch to a hard body or a spinner with a bit of a gap in between attempts. What did I just say? With the nice brown trout, folks. There he is. There he is. Down. Oh. Slab. Absolute slab. Oh man, look at that. How's that? Healthy, wild, plump, Senny West brown. Super stoked. Loving that. I'm changing tacks now. The old spotted dog. The classic. We might get attention for the few of the ones that were lying doggo. A lot of them will be. They'll be lower down underneath the current, underneath the shadows for the shade, because it is quite warm. Got the beak. Another one. They're all waking up. Oh, thought he took the lure with him. Lovely. Oh, good one. Good one. Yes! They're just all awesome today. It's just on. Yeah. Beautiful fish. This system's in the finest of health. It probably couldn't be even better. I can't believe this. Bear in mind. Goodbye. Oh, at the feet, a rainbow. Yes. Savagery of the rainbow. Oh, come on. It's not enormous. Oh, bring it on. Got a bit of current with it, but hell, he drags hard even when he goes against the current. Hey, big rainbow. Awesome. Just an absolute golden session. Can't believe it. I want to keep going. And we're going. Oh well, good.